G'day and welcome to part 2 of the Nissan Bluebird. Now, a couple of things. Okay, the Starlet is all cleared and painted. That's the colour we've chosen, and it's going to look absolutely lovely once it's buffed. It's still off gassing at the moment. Still smells a little bit solventy. The priority, I guess, is pulling the blue car apart and getting that taken away. That's pulling the engine out and the front suspension and the rear suspension, all that sort of stuff. It's actually quite a big job. But I just need to spend a day and get that done and get the car gone. And so I decided to sort of pull the Bluebird apart. Not for any other reason than I felt like it. One thing I've noticed with parts, this is a 90s car, don't go to eBay, Gumtree, anywhere like that to buy parts for these things, unless they're sort of consumables and you're buying them new and you're buying them online, that sort of thing. I've been going to pick apart, and it is dirt cheap, ridiculous. I've probably spent $380, and that's wheels, a full dash, clusters, head-up displays. I bought spare climate control, and wiring loom. That's what we're doing. So this one's about, I haven't even, actually, before I forget, I haven't even looked at it mechanically. Do you know what I mean? I haven't looked over the car properly yet. I just wanted to buy a few parts and get it moving. It's kind of funny because the Nissan had the LX, which was the base model, which was still kitted out to the max. The Triple S being the sports model and the TI being the luxury one, which is what that is, but it didn't have the head-up display, and that's what I wanted to do. In here, there's a bit of an electronics lesson on how cathode ray tubes in relation to a vacuum fluorescent display. And these things don't have LEDs, they have vacuum fluorescent displays in them, which are really interesting. I find them interesting. If you don't, well, just fast forward through that bit. But the parts on the car are just so cheap at the wreckers, and you pay virtually nothing. Like a cluster was for a Triple S with all the head-up module and everything was $35. You know, you're going to pay at least $150 on eBay for that sort of thing, if and probably more. So everything, wheels were $30. They were $30 each. The Series 2 wheels, the whole dash was dear. That was $100, but even then, that's not much. The head-up display, I think, was $10 or something. I bought a full stereo. I actually couldn't find mine, so I bought one because I had one somewhere. Then I found mine after I bought it. It's got two of them. $10, and that was with the CD player, everything. So, you know, you wouldn't go online to buy stuff like this. You would just go there. And some of the wreckers will charge. There's one round here where you pull stuff off, and they will charge. If you've got a handful of bolts, you'll $10, you know. And that's whereas these people just don't care. They just, well, they care, but they're a lot kinder, and they'll just say, "Oh, don't worry about that. Yeah, that's $5. That's $10." Really, really cheap. And so it's the only way to get parts for cars that are still in wrecking yards, and that's to go through them, not the wreckers that pull stuff off for you. Although Baywood Wreckers in Bayswater on Power Road, he's very good. His name's John. Very, very reasonable guy. So between him and Pick Apart, we're set. So in this one I got carried away, which is normal for me. And of course you think you can just plug stuff in, and you can't. There's always a surprise. And so that's what we find in this one. So with that being said, I hope you enjoy. Well, back over here again. Nice. This time I've got Charlie. Okay, fair enough, I won't. This time I've got Charlie with me. So we're here to look for... Nice conversation. Yeah, Charlie never farts, but last night it sounded like a thunderstorm. So anyway, we're looking at Bluey parts, because there's Blueys. Okay. Now, Series 1, I can tell more about them now, because a lot of my memories on these things, the knowledge I had, had sort of escaped me, but now I kind of remember more stuff. Has this got a Nissan badge on the back? I need a Nissan badge. Oh, it has. Oh, thank you very much. I'll be taking that. Actually, I kind of like the Series 2 one. Now, this one, nothing there I want. Sweet. It's a LX, I think, or whatever, but anyway, we'll keep going. Alright. I'm going to take this grill. I don't think the bonnet's different. I'm not sure. Because I just like that better than the other ones. I think the other ones look pretty crappy, but it doesn't matter. We can always swap it back if we don't like it afterwards. And I want to have a look and see if these badges fit. I'd love a rear wiper, but there's no hole in the back window. I want to see, I like them. It looks sort of sleeker and nicer, but anyway. I'm going to take a few parts. Oh, and the back bumper, what's the back bumper like? Still not great. It's better than what we've got, but it's still got... why has it got a radio hanging up through? Oh, it's not a radio. What sort of car is this? Oh, Maxima. Is that Maxima?
It looks nice.
Yeah, it's a Maxima. That still looks fairly shite there, but maybe. Hi, Charlie.
Neighbouring, Dad.
Hang on. I'm just taking this out. I'm having trouble getting it out though because I can't really see what I'm doing. I need to get the, I want to take the cluster. I might do it from your side. I want to take the cluster for the heads up. I really want, I don't know why I don't need a heads up display, it's ridiculous, but I just feel like one. I feel like a heads up display, Charlie.
That's great.
But I can't get the things out. I can't get in this door, the door's locked solid.
Nothing's locked solid if you have a hammer.
I've got a hammer, but I'm not prepared to damage it. Fuck me. Oh, just turn it off. Just something my daughter whipped up for our isolation. Now, this isn't the first time she's done this, probably half a dozen times. It's absolutely, look at what she does for us. Isn't that lovely? We went out shopping last night, gloved and masked up to get some essentials, and on the way we picked up a few ingredients. So 3 cheers for Alana. I think this is absolutely wonderful of her. Oh yes, black and white TVs and cups of tea. What does this have to do with Nissan Bluebirds? Not much. But there is something relevant to it. Now, this is more about how electrons behave with phosphor, yeah? And it's all relevant to do with VFDs, which are vacuum fluorescent displays, and our little Bluey's got a few of those in it. It's also relevant to VCRs and I don't know, digital clocks and microwave ovens and all sorts of stuff. Anything with a VFD in it. Now, let me take the cover off this and show you what's going on with it. I'm going to whip some screws out. This is also relevant to VK Calais, XF Fairmont gears, any cars with digital dashes from way back when, before LEDs were used. And a lot of the time people refer to those digital dashes as an LED dash or whatever, and I've done that too. But they're not LEDs. They're nothing like LEDs. And they're not LCD either. It's a VFD. And it's really, really interesting. Come on, get out of the bastard. And there's a bit of stuff in here, and a lot of stuff in it isn't really relevant to the Bluey. You know, we've got RF amplifiers, audio amplifiers, degaussing coils, flyback transformers, neck boards, all sorts of stuff in here that isn't relevant to the Bluey, but some of it is, and I'll show it to you. So let me turn this around. Actually, I'll turn it this way and move the camera, and we'll put our TV set in the PowerPoint, turn it on, and have a look at some stuff. The lights because I'm turning the telly on, and we should see something appear on the screen soon, which is just a whole lot of that stuff. This is analog, there's no analog signal anymore, which is why you're getting all that static looking stuff. But what we're really interested in, if I turn this around, and you've got to watch some tellies, some old tellies have a live chassis, so this is a plastic portable thing, so it's not live in the chassis, but let's just lower you down and have a look at something. And we're interested in this thing here at the back. That little soft orange glow, that is a heater. Now I'm just going to turn the lights back on and the TV off, and let's talk about some stuff. But before we do, let's have more tea. It's raining today, you can see all this green stuff. I've painted the Starlie, but I need to clear it. This is a neck board at the back here. Now, this is what happens. That little orange glow is a heater, and what it does is it heats up a cathode and emits electrons. And those electrons, if you think of it like, come off in a cloud. They sort of just hang around. Inside this glass tube is a focusing grid that arranges that cloud of electrons into a very fine beam. Then you have an accelerating grid that pushes them out this way. And when you get to here, just past the deflection coils, you've got this big spark plug looking thing, the flyback transformer. It generates about 15 kV, 15,000 volts in a set this size. Maybe a big 68 centimeters generate like 40,000 volts, I'm not really sure. And that's known as your final anode. And what happens when your electron beam gets there is it shoots toward the front of the screen, and on the rear, on the back of the glass of the screen is coated in phosphor. And when the electrons hit the phosphor, that gives light. Now, there's a lot of science in these things. That tube, for example, is coated with what's called an aqua dag, which is an internal coating which is conductive, and there's another conductive coating on the outside. So what happens is it works like a capacitor. You've got these two poles, and you've got the glass in the middle which acts like a dielectric, and that's why they store a lot of current. If I stick my finger in there, I'll get belted even though the thing's turned off. The idea of that capacitance actually filters the beam as it comes out and removes interference and all sorts of stuff. Now these deflection coils, what they do is they'll shoot the beam up here, up to your top left, and they'll scan one line. Gun goes off, comes back, scans another line, and so forth until it gets to the bottom of the screen and presents a still picture. Comes back up to the top, rescans another still picture, and so on and so forth. And that gives you, through our persistence of vision, a moving picture, even though it's just a series of still pictures. Now, this works in a very similar way to what our display does in the Bluebird. As I said before, there's a lot of stuff in this telly which isn't relevant to the Bluey, but this is where the VFD comes in. So that's the bit I'm interested in, this screen here. That's your VFD. Right, and there we go again. So we can clean that clock lens up. I don't think we'll need this stuff. The other stuff in our car seems to work really well. Now what I want to show you are these things here, and I've got, perhaps the best one is the head-up display. That's probably the most clear. So you can see we've got 3 VFDs in here. Now these work in a similar way to our television. If I zoom right up, now all of these characters, they look like normal 7-segment LEDs, and we all call them LEDs, but they're not. That's just coatings of phosphor. What you see there, the mile per hour, kilometre an hour, the handbrake indicators, door open, all these sorts of stuff are just phosphor coating. Now, if you look very closely, there's these lines. And those lines are heating elements. They're the things that let off the electrons. The chicken wire looking stuff is a screen. Now, when that screen's energized, the electrons are allowed to pass through from those wires and light up those bits of phosphor. When that screen is not energized, then nothing can show. And they're beautiful things. Now everything's LED. LED is a very stark light. It's not as beautiful as this. When these characters fluoresce, they give off a beautiful light. And that's what I particularly like about these older cars. They just have that character about them. So, yeah, you can see the grid. If we look over to where that indicator light is there, you can see the grid around it. That's what lets the electrons through to let that phosphor fluoresce. But they're not LED. We all think they are. I prefer them as LED as well, but they're not. But nicer in my opinion. Now if you look at a mains powered digital clock, and this digital clock you would think is LED, electronic time display. I've had this for years. In fact, September 15, 1980, it was a birthday present. Don't ask me why, I never took that off. I think I was 14 when I got it. But before we go into this too much further, I'm going to eat this clinker. And it's green. This has a fault in it, which I have to fix anyhow. Now when I power this up, you'll see what I'm talking about. Actually, I'll just leave that off. Now this has a volume brightness knob on it. And I don't know if you can see, it's not coming out too clearly on the camera. It's sort of flickering. It's not making much difference, is it? What it's doing when we turn the brightness up is those bars, where's the little screwdriver? These little heating element bars. The voltage is going up. So on low it might be on 3 volts or whatever. Turn them up, those heating element bars are going to be going up to about 6 volts, maybe around there, and therefore letting more electrons off. And that's how you get the brightness. The higher the voltage on these heating elements, the more electrons are generated, and therefore the more can access the phosphor and make the characters a bit brighter. And these are run fairly high. They sit in a box which has a mirror, and it's a magnifying mirror. If you look at that, it makes you look like Frankenstein or whatever. And so it reflects off that mirror, obviously coming off the mirror about face, and by the time it reflects off your windshield, then it's in proper orientation. But if we pop that in, you can see how it sits in here, and that's how she sits in there like that, and it comes off the mirror. Can you see that? Isn't that wonderful? So I'm going to put this together because I don't want it damaged, and therefore we can try it in the car. Now we have to use it in conjunction with that other dashboard, the other instrument cluster I should say, and that will give us hopefully the result we're after. And these don't seem to be all that expensive to buy. I dare say if you buy them through Nissan they'll be $1,000, but you know, I think I paid $10 or something for that. There's a bit of muck in there and you're going to see it, and then of course this screen just sits on top. But it's very interesting how it works. It's wonderful actually, and there are a lot of eBay specials now which emulate this sort of technology, but I dare say would work probably just as well or better, but it wouldn't look nearly as good. So, Nissan Bluey, right. Haven't looked at this properly yet. She's a bit grotty, but the lady that had it kept it in wonderful condition. Somebody's put this elastic under here to glue that down and taped it, but haven't taken the tape off, or I haven't taken the tape off. We can get that off, not a problem there. It's got some tape on this thing too. That mirror might have some damage on it. Yes, it's got a hole. I wish I'd known. I'd have bought one from the wrecker. But never mind. That is repairable. Damn, I wish I knew. Now I've got to paint one. Oh man, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'll do some touch-ups. I'll buy a little bit of paint for it. But I'm not expecting to need much. What I'm interested in though is the dashboard. Now, oh jeez, this car is wonderful. It's a beautiful car. But I'm going to take all this out, have a bit of a look. We've got a steering column that lowers, which is great. So have a look. We'll leave that wood grain there. Now that wood grain breaks really, really easily. And I want to see what's behind here because I want to put the head-up display in. So I think we'll pull it to bits. There's a couple of screws. If you move the seat forward there. I don't remember doing much work on these things. I'm not overly familiar with them, and I think that clips in there. That quadrant thing will probably, yes, it unclips. Typical Nissan. Oh yeah, mounting clips. Now, if you feel seasick, you might feel worse because this camera is going to sway around. Okay, what do? We pull screws. I can't remember how to get these out. I pulled one out of the wrecker because I got a thing out of it, an instrument cluster, but I didn't, it was half out anyway, you know what I mean? So the other thing I've noticed with Nissan stuff is the plugs they use on the dashes have 2 releases. They're not just single releases like most other manufacturers have. But this is completely unnecessary, and we should be looking at the mechanical side first, but I want to do this because it's more fun. And it just, I don't know, I just feel like doing it. I probably should disconnect the battery, shouldn't I? I think I will. We'll just get these out. And if you're, oh, hang on a minute. I just want to get the head out of it first. Volvo Bone, it's called a Bone. It's a trim tool, and they're wonderful. Jason Hill has a tool like this that he uses for trimming, but I think it's a metal thing. It's not called a bone either. It's a very hard plastic. I've thrashed that thing to bits, but it still works well. So let us start disconnecting stuff behind here. We'll start with you. That's only got a single release plug, I think. Have you? Yep, you have. And Nissan are quite generous in that they give you quite a lot of room to get these out. They're bastards. They really are. That's why they give you the room, I think. They're only single release on these, but on the back of the instrument cluster, they're a twin. Oh, there's another one. Hang on, what have I missed? What's that thing? Oh, the clock. I thought I got that one. Come on, where are you? Oh, that could have ended badly. It comes out sideways. Right. Out you come. You can go in the back until you're ready to go back in. Oh, bugger. That has to come out. Oh, fortunately, that was easy. Oh, goodness me. More switches. This is the instrument dimmer. And there's a funny little pipe thing on the back of that. We should be able to... Oh, what a bastard. Hang on a minute. I might just swing that down out the way, because now I can access the instrumentation bolts, or screws. There's 4 of them. Oh, oops. We don't want to... I've got another spare bit of this wood, but I haven't got a spare bit of that one. So I'll just pop this out, pull our instrumentation out, and we'll have a bit of a gander at it, eh? Oh, where did that go? Yeah, it'll turn up. Another job for the bone. You get your finger on one side and the bone on the other, wires and everything just release. Right, so that's the cluster out. Let's go and have a bit of a look at another one. Bluey clusters. There is the one off board, which has got the heads up thing on it. And there's our original one, which I'm going to have to change a few things. The speedo head is one of them because it's reading 100,000 more. And also the automatic thing is blanked out. That was a stick shift. It was manual. Everyone hates it when I said stick shift. Now the difference on these is when you turn them around. Maybe it's going to be easier if I turn it that way. Okay. And straight off the bat, we've got some differences. The pinouts here look the same, and there look the same, and that looks the same, and that looks the same, but of course you've got these 2 wires here on this little box of doodads which controls the head-up display. What I want to do is plug it all in and see what happens. I'm just going to go around and just check some of these traces to see where they're going, to make sure the wiring is the same. They're labelled, if I put this on top of here, they're labelled. So for example, airbag, ignition power, that looks the same. So I'm just going to have a bit of a sticky and just make sure before I put it in and blow it up. It fits in there. I don't remember on the other car what was plugged in there. I think I'm missing something. Radio fitters have missed out on the 2 screws here. It's not unusual for that sort of thing to happen. But we'll pull this out. It'll be a miracle if they haven't cut up all the wiring for it. That seems to be something they always do. Instead of, you can buy adapters, you know, Nissan ones, Ford ones, Holden ones. So if you're changing out your stereo head unit, you can just plug an adapter in. It means you don't have to cut the loom and you don't have to do all the figuring out where the speakers and everything are. Let's have a look. Oh my, hang on a second. I think they've left it. Hang on a sec, let's just pull him out and have a look and pop the antenna out. Oh, they've done a good job of that. Hang about for a moment. And the other thing they've done, which I love, God, let me not diss radio people. Look, they've put a proper junction in. That really is good. And it doesn't look as though... Have they got the adapter on there? Let's just unwrap this and have a look, eh? It's not proper Autolex tape, but it doesn't matter. I'm not going to go too hard on them. Oh, they are good. Hang on a minute. They've split that, but they've left the original plug there. Excellent. The only thing I'm seeing now, which isn't anyone's fault but mine, is the cable that powers the head-up display is missing. I think it's missing. Normally they would use a single loom, but I can't locate it. There's one that comes off and it picks up, you know, your door switches and your what gear in it, you know, the handbrake and all that sort of stuff, and displays it on the head-up display, but it doesn't seem to be there. It surprises me that they've done it that way though. Never mind. That is a pain. I didn't even notice that. No, I didn't see that coming. Alright then, show me. Sweet, good work. Right, well, we haven't got the main part of the loom for the head up, which was kind of obvious. Do you know what I mean? I thought I could find it lurking behind here, but it's not. It's a different loom. I would think LXs and TIs have the same loom and triple S's are different. So, looking at my phone, looking at the time, I believe it's dash pulling o'clock. Let's pull this thing out and see what we find. These are actually easy to get out. I've pulled one out before. It's dinner time. To remove a dash, we've taken the console out. The glove box and the tray under here, the little trim that goes under there. This is all part of the dash. No, it's not. I'm lying. That's not part of the dash. I can't remember. Anyway, we've just got fasteners under here. There's a 6mm under there. There's a couple behind here, behind where the instrument cluster is. Is that going to focus? Come on, what are you doing? That's better. Another one behind here. There's one under there. And a bunch of screws under here. And it's clipped at the top. Oh, another thing. To get these off, you've got to just lift those. And there's a couple of screws under there. You don't want to lift them too hard because they break. And the same over there. And there's a sensor over there. They're your little tweeters for your holographic sound. These cars have a mad sound system in them, and that's why I wanted OE. And part of the reason for that is you've got two amplifiers, a front one and a back one, and they're in the boot under the parcel tray. So the problem that's going to, well, the thing that's going to be difficult is I've got to take the crash bar out to get the loom out. I'm going to take the whole loom out, and all your airs and everything are behind that heater fan. It's a bit like the Starlie in that the air conditioning box, which is next to it, is designed to go in last. So getting that heater fan out can be a real pain. And this car has a magic air conditioner, so I don't want to compromise the gas, the fact that it's gassed up and it's working well. So we'll come back. I'm going to go and visit Mum, see how she's going to the hospital. And we'll come back and have a look at this tomorrow. So there's a couple of bolts under the top. That's a little sensor thing I've taken off. There's a bit of wind, I hope you can hear. There it is there. And so I took that trim off, that came out. These are quite thin plastic, particularly on the edge, and there's 25 years worth of sun that will have made them sort of brittle. So it's not a bad idea to be really careful with it. You can actually lift up the edge and get the thing in, the tool in. These are a hex bolt with a, I'm going to smash the window if I'm not careful, with a socket type thing on them, so you can just use a screwdriver in there. They're quite deeply recessed, and I mean, when I'm putting this thing back together, if I can find it, I'll be doing it from the outside and sort of looking in. But yeah, they'll just come in, and we'll leave the screw in there. It's out now, I think. Yep. Just going to lift this out. There's a plug on the back of the light for the cigarette lighter. The cigarette lighter came out of this car, its connector's behind there. I'm just going to take this out, and that, we'll just pull that back down. And that whole thing will come out. So we're just going to put that in a nice safe place. Divulges a couple more fasteners here and here. I'll just take this one, pardon me, out first. Again, you know, get yourself a bone and you can get into it like that without taking the whole thing off. It doesn't take much to get it out. So for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to remove it. Now they're the only two holding the dash in now. There's very little holding these in. As we said, there's one in the corner there, there's these two, one in the corner there, two behind the instrument cluster, two at the top, and there's a couple of screws as well. Although the screws seem to be more for the console fascia. The good thing about these cars is the wiring loom actually, it's like the Starlie, but the wiring loom isn't part of the dash. It actually stays in the car. The only thing that comes out with the dash is the heating vent plumbing. I might drop the column just to make it easier, so it means disconnecting combination switches. And they're quite tight plugs, but they do come out. That one there, I don't know what that's for. But anyway, we'll just unplug those and let them hang. And there's 4 bolts, or 2 nuts and 2 bolts I think, 14mm ones just up there, and the column will drop down. And then we'll pull the dash out. Nice. Right, so I've got everything unbolted. Just a matter of making an exit path for the dash, so I've sort of unclipped those. They can stay in there. And there's a clip, that's the only one that is actually clipped to the dash for that thing, and I've dropped the column. These things are going to get tangled if we're not careful, so we just want to bring them down and let them hang. There's the climate control thingy here, and there's also this one that sort of loops around. Hang on, I've got to unplug that. That loops around through the dash, so we need to make sure that's all clear, and we should just be able to pull it out. Should be in the operative word. What have I forgotten? I'm caught on the wind lacing. There we go. And that'll just come out. So go and find a nice soft, nice safe place for this, and we'll have a look at what we got. Oh, right, there you go. Beautifully thought out, this thing, the way it's done. Now what I'm going to do, there's a screw here, we can take that, pull that vent out. I'll just do that now, just a moment. Okay, so we've got lots of wires, bits and pieces. There's the crash bar, we've dropped the column off, all your fuses and everything in here, everything in there, that just clips up in there. So here's your wiring loom, massive, and it's all connected to a huge, if you can see, I don't know if you can see down there, that connector there at the front with the bolt on it. You actually undo that and the whole thing will come out. There's nothing hard about it. Those fasteners up the top there that hold the loom in can be tricky to get off. They're designed to be pushed on but not pulled off. There are subtle differences. I didn't see that on the other loom, but we'll have a look and see what we can work out. The biggest problem with this, and the only part that I view as reasonably hard, this loom starts over here with a huge connector and it runs across the top. There's no big deal with that. And then we get down to here. Now, this is like a lot of Japanese cars in that the air conditioning evaporator goes in last. This car has a brilliant air conditioner and I don't want to touch it, and I'm certainly not going to decommission it. But it means getting the heater fan out is a pain, because behind the heater fan there's a couple of earths. And the wiring is routed around the front of the heater fan into the engine bay, where it goes off to the wiper motor and the left-hand front indicator on the guard. Now, we've got to get that out, pardon me. The only way I can think of getting it out is loosening the air conditioning box, taking the bolt out for those and taking the crash bar out, and then I can remove that bracket. Why are we doing this? Because we can. Is it necessary? Absolutely not. It's funny the way it's wired though. You'll find, for example, the tweeter, the high frequency driver, if you like, for the audio, is plugged in on both sides. This side it stays with the car in the roof loom, and it's plugged in on the block connector there. This side's part of the dash loom. So you'll find things like that. The same with that left-hand indicator on the guard we're talking about. That stays, that comes out with this loom. The right-hand one stays because it's on a different loom. But none of that matters. None of it matters at all. So what I want to do, here's the radio wiring. They've left two connectors, but the CD one's missing. I think I mentioned that before. The wiring loom I've got has everything there, which is cool. So it mightn't be a bad idea to stick some masking tape. All the plugs will be different, so they only plug in one way. But it probably won't be a bad idea to label them. That might be the idea. That might be the way to go. So I think what we'll do first is we'll pull this crash bar out and see where that goes. Hopefully the wind's not too distracting for you. This is a Triple S wiring loom, and the only reason we're putting it in is because of that. No, it's because of that one. That's the feed for the head-up display module on the back of the speedo. You might want to cut one at the wrecker and wire it in yourself. It's going to mean chasing schematics, and you're going to be pulling the dash out anyway. And this, normally looms like this are $40 at the wreckers. I would always recommend going to pick apart, and the reason is you take the parts out yourself. You just take them out of your car first, so you know what tools to take. You go there, and when I went there for this one, it came up as $35, and it was a 50% off day, so I got this whole loom for $17.50. It's a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you? So, we got our dash plugs. There's another dash plug. That's the one for the head-up, as I was saying. You know, other connectors around. That's the temperature sensor for the climate control. All sorts of stuff. We've even got the, where is it? The little, oh, that's for your tweeter when you run out pillar. All your heater fan stuff. Hazards, auto climate control. Hazards are one of these ones. Might be that one. That goes out of into your engine bay for your wiper motor, and there's a little other thing out there, I don't know what it is, and that's your side marker light and all that sort of stuff. So it's all here. That's your little sensor underneath the dash too. So what I'm doing is I'm making sure they're these big plugs, just as I digress. They're the big plugs that screw into the thing, the block. Just making sure all these plugs are the same. Crash bar's out. Let's have a look inside. Oh dear. If the ladies that sold me the car saw this, they'd be very upset. But that's a reason for it. Oh, it's good. This is normally for clutch and brake. The switch is for the cruise control. Maybe for starting without it in gear or something, I don't know. Oh, there's another plug there. So this is a blind exercise in just pulling crap off. That part of the loom, the big box, is held on with plastic nuts against those spikes. So we've got everything off there. I've just got to take these junctions off. I'll have to undo that, take the junctions out. The tweeter thing, connector's still stuck in the B pillar, the A pillar, sorry. We're nearly there. Just easier without all this on. Didn't have to take these off, but I thought, for visual shock, it's actually better. Let's just make it look as bad as we can, and then put it together and make it look nice again. I actually love doing this stuff. I like pulling things apart, and like every guy, I like pulling it apart, and putting it back together is not as much fun, but this will be. This will be good. It'll be good. Major earth points in the Blueys. One up there. This one didn't remove the paint, but the thread it is. But it's relying on the thread to make continuity, and there's two earths under there. So we'll pull that out. And I reckon we've nearly got the loom out. I've just got to take the wheel off. That's the pain in the neck bit, because I'm parked right up against the bush. Whoa, messed up Bluey. Alright, I've got the rest of this out. There's a cut in that, yep. We'll pull the wiring through. Snagged, great, hang on. But, oh, hang on, come out of there. There we go. God, the amount of snags in this thing, just a minute. Rightio, go for round 3, eh? Oh, okay, so let's take this whole loom out. Come on, you. Oh my gosh. Hang on a minute. One-handed. It's tricky. There's a couple of things I want to show you though. I'm just going to pop this loom on the ground. Just there. And we'll have a look in a moment. This is good. This is really, really good. There's a lot of muck in the air conditioning. I can get that out. There's muck in the heater fan. That'll cause it to be noisy. There's pine needles and things in there. But not just that, we can see just how great the body is around the screen. Absolutely perfect. I'm really happy that I've pulled this apart. And of course, absolutely dry under the carpet, even though we have a sunroof. I don't know where the sunroof drains are on these cars, but really happy I've done this. It's wonderful. So, it's all fairly straightforward. There's bolts all over the place and nuts. I know what they are. There's your crash bar ones over there in your steering column, and there's self-tapping 10mm ones, and they hold the dash in, and all sorts of stuff. And there's machine ones with 6mm threads for those sorts of things up there. And as well as the fan, so it's not a hard thing to put back together. It looks complicated, but it isn't. There's your engine ECU. I'm assuming that's the automatic one down there. And that brings us to the next point. We have an issue because Nissan have a different loom for the autos. I forgot to mention a whole build up of silt here. That's the best way to get rust. This car hasn't got any, but we can unbolt the bottom of the guard here, just pull it out a little bit. It might have a brace inside here as well, I don't know, and just hose it right out, because we don't want that. And that'll all come when we clean him up and start doing mechanical repairs. These looms look almost identical. All down that end, it's all the same, where it goes in the engine bay and you've got your heater controls and all that sort of stuff. Or the heater, like the air conditioning fan and modules and so forth. All your switch gears the same, the relays are the same, it's all good. It's when you get to where the speedo actually plugs in on this car, that's the bit that's missing, that loom there. And you've also got this yellow connector, which is a bit different to what we've got here. So, that's not it. Where the hell is it? I just had it. No. It's up here. So we've got a few differences. There's 4 wires, or there's 4 plugs that go in on the TI, and there's 5 on the Triple S. That yellow one looks completely different, so I've got to figure this out. Having a look at the plugs, what they do. I can't find the yellow one on this one, but it means that what we have to do is make up a loom. Now, the Triple S was a manual car. It has got this one here, which is for the automatic transmission control module. So an auto Triple S would have been a better car to get the loom out of. Now, I'm going to start pulling the Triple S loom apart and figuring out what I'm interested is in, which one is it? This one here. That's the one we're interested in now. I would think the speedo would get its signal from the cluster, and things like the check engine light would come from the cluster too, I would imagine. I haven't looked into this. So a lot of wiring there is going to be for things like power feeds and handbrake light and each of the door lights and, you know, that sort of thing. So I need to open him up and have a look. So we will put the TI loom back in once because I want to keep the automatic one. I think it's going to be simpler sorting out the speedo than the transmission. I don't know if the ECU pinouts are the same or what. The ECU is on its own loom. I can check that by looking through those and having a look. But the car does look a mess. We fixed the mirror, but the inside of it is absolutely disgraceful. But it doesn't matter because we know exactly how everything goes. I hope we do. Otherwise I'll stuff it up and have to show you. But it does look fairly straightforward. You know, there's your computer there on its own loom, and it plugs in all over the place. And there's your main sort of interface, wiring interface there. Like a Ford, you've got a blank for your clutch pedal if it's a manual car. It wouldn't be a bad idea putting a manual transmission in this car, but I want to keep it auto. Every other car I've got's manual, except the XW and the XD, they're both autos, but you know, it's all good. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I wanted to have the thing running in today's chapter, but when I saw the wiring was different, I thought, no, I need to actually concentrate and make sure it's all good before I film it and publish it, because I might have egg on my face. More information on Bluey wiring looms. You probably think it's boring as shit, but I love it. I absolutely love this stuff. Right. Triple S and TI cluster. I got a bit of a fright. I've just been soaking this stuff in Prepsol. It had like really bad sticky residue and it's still not that great. What we're doing is we're putting this for powering up our head-up display. And so I wanted to peel it back and see what these things did. Now what I've got a fright about, all the plugs on this, if I can find them. Number 3 was a real issue. I numbered them. What did I do with number 3? Bear with me. Nope, that's the radio. Crap, where'd I put it? Anyway, look, number 3 on this is completely different. The wiring's completely different. Where is it? I want to show you. Now I've got a beam up on it about it. Bugger it, where the hell did it go? Is it over there? Oh, here we go. Number 3, alright, so there's 4 plugs on the TI. 2 is identical, not a problem. 1 has odd wires in it, 3 is completely different. If you look at that, absolutely completely different. What I was relieved to find out is that controls in your Auto Magics, your park, reverse drive, all those lights. Our what's this car called? Triple S was a manual, so I didn't have those. I don't really care whether it's got those or not. The printed circuit's completely different. I'm not going to fudge with it because I can put diodes in there and I can make it all work, but I don't know if I'll worry. Do you know what I mean? If I want to, I'll change it later. The plug can still go, it just means they're going nowhere. which is fine. The other one is there's a wire for the airbag, and my car, because this was an airbag car, the Triple S, where mine is pre-airbag, and it just looks like a really simple job. So I did get a bit spooked. I'll be honest with you. I thought, oh, these things can just go as long as your arm. So this loom here, which is attached to plug number 4, and plug number 4, that's the one with the brown wire, and the brown one, I need to find out what that does. I don't know what that one does, that brown wire. That's the only wire in the whole thing I can't account for. But a lot of the stuff that controls the head-up display is just tapped in. So I'm just going to tap it into the TI loom and walk and put it back together. So I'm not going to do it in this chapter though, because I don't want to. And I'm going to go inside. We're doing online teaching and it's very, very good. It's good fun. Kids are good. I'm good. But there's a lot of organisation, so I've got to go and write some lesson plans, which don't have anything to do with this. So, on that note, I'm going to say thank you so much for watching. Take good care of your lesson, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Substandard light. I'm trying to get this wood grain out without breaking anything. Come back. So I'm actually taking the whole vents system out. Very clean. There are tabs here, and I can see where the other ones were breaking. Even that one, I broke that tab, or at least I've compromised it, but I can't see a way of getting that out. I can see that one's coming, but they're just so bloody easy to break. Here's some tabs here, and they're just stupid brittle. They're ridiculous how brittle they are. And I think I've got it. I'm just so worried because I haven't got a spare. There we go. And they just bust. They're just ridiculously easy to break. I might polish that up. I took those screws out of there, not knowing, because I'm ignorant with these, but there's a lot of flex in that. And it's just completely and utterly brittle. So I'll pop those screws back and I'll fit it in the other dash. But I think before I do, whoops, so even when you tighten the things up, it's the most brittle bit of plastic, and Nissan, if they've got any of these left, probably want $400 for them. And I tell you what, I would probably pay it, because that's, you know, the Triple S and TI, I really like that. So I'm just going to lightly polish it, because I have to change the dash top for the head-up display. Light's dreadful. This is the Triple S dash with the head-up display in it. That's the back of it there. I've changed all the ducting to the original TI ones because the car had a pleasant smell in it. And you don't know what you're going to get. Car from the records, it probably stinks inside. It's still in? Good. And it was particularly clean. The other ducting was particularly clean inside. So, just a matter of putting it all in. It's very clean stuff, it's good. And that goes over there and sits in something like that. Here we go. Just screw him up and we're good to go. It looks nice in the dark, although I cracked it, which is a real pain. It's got a crack. And I didn't crack it taking it off, I cracked it putting it on. They're impossible things, so I'm going to have to try and find another one because I don't want to crack in that. This is the one with the head up. I've got the surround, but I've put it down somewhere, I don't know where it is. But for now, even though the light is dreadful, that will do. What do you reckon? She haven't. Jesus.